Hello, so we're continuing our learning of Mishnah on Shabbat. We're up to the last Mishnah of Chapter 2. So Chapter 2, Mishnah 7, Zayin. Shlosha dvarim tzarich adam lomar betoch beito erev Shabbat im chashecha. So there's three things a person has to say in his home right before Sabbath, the Shabbat comes in, before dark. So before the Shabbat has actually come in. Isartem, Evartem, Hadliku et haner. So it's interesting, these three things come in a different, the last one comes in a different kind of form. So the first two are questions. Have you tithed? This is this person asking their other people in their household, their family. Have you prepared the Eruv? And kindle the Shabbat lights, kindle the lights, Hadliku et haner. So the first two, have you tithed? Have you separated the whatever produce that needs to be, have tithes taken from it that's currently tevel? It's not yet in a situation where it can be used because it hasn't been tithed. Have you done that so that we have the food that we need for Shabbat? So if it's anything that we want to eat, we're able to partake of it on Shabbat. You have to do that beforehand. Have you prepared the Eruvs? This could be referring to either or both the Eruv Chatzerot and the Eruv Tchumim, the Eruv of how, where we can travel. Are we in an enclosed area? Are we in an area that is connecting different courtyards of different homes? It wouldn't have been so large scale like we have nowadays in a whole city, but an Eruv within a smaller community. Is that prepared, or is the Eruv in order that we need the Eruv Tchumim in order to travel certain distances on Shabbat? And the last one is light the candles. So the first two are something that you won't be able to immediately visually tell if they were done, so they're asked as a question. And the last one, which you see if there's no lights or there are lights lit, so presumably if there's no lights, then you say to the people in your house that, oh, you should do that before Shabbat comes in. You have to light the lamp, the candles that we need for Shabbat, so that we have shalom bayit, so that we have peace in the home on Shabbat. Safek chashecha, safek ein chashecha, ein ma'asrin et havadai, ve'ein matbilin et hakelim, ve'ein madlikin et hanerot. So, if it's in doubt whether it is nighttime or not, so it's presumably the time that we refer to as Ben Hashmashot, twilight, where it's unclear the time between day and night. We don't know which one it really is, so we are strict in the case of Shabbat. And there are certain leniencies, but most things it would be that we are moving towards on Shabbat we're being strict certainly about biblical things. So during that time, during Ben Hashmashot, if we don't know if it's night or not, don't do the tithing. We can't tithe because this produce would be biblically prohibited without tithing, and to do the tithing of things that certainly need would be a problem because we're changing its status. It's kind of like a fixing. The same way you're prohibited to fix a vessel, something physical, you're also prohibited rabbinically to, while that's biblical, it's rabbinic to then fix something in the sense of making it usable, even if it's not like a visual, real physical substantive change, which is the case of doing the tithe. Ve'ein matbilin et hakelim, and we also don't toivel, we wouldn't immerse vessels that are become ritually impure in order to use them, because that's also, even though it's not a tangible fix that might be biblically prohibited, there's still a rabbinically prohibited fixing of these vessels that happens because now they go from unusable to usable. Ein madlikin et hanerot, and that one's kind of obvious. That one's the only one that's a clear biblical prohibition. So certainly you can't light candles once it is perhaps already Shabbat. So we're strict there. So that maybe it's just to complete that list of the three things that we mentioned before. Or for some other reason, just to let you know, but this one should be more clear. The third of the three should be much more clear than the other two that might have been questionable. Aval ma'asrin et hadamai, arvin, v'tomnin et hachamim. But you can, during this Ben Hashmashot time, you can do the separating. We're having construction done here, so there's some distracting noises, I apologize. But you can do the separating out of demai is, as opposed to tevel, which is produce that you know needs to be tithed that has not been tithed by anyone. Demai is produce that's questionable. It's questionable because the rabbis were concerned there were people at a certain point in time that were still good about the main tithing, but then the other tithes that had to happen, people were less knowledgeable or less scrupulous. So demai refers to produce that is of questionable status, that we don't know it was owned by someone who maybe is not so observant or so careful or so learned, and therefore has this kind of in-between questionable status. So you can do the tithing of that because of a lesser, more lenient, because there's less of a concern. With demai, it's really a rabbinic concern, which the produce of tevel would be biblically prohibited without having done tithing. It's rabbinically prohibited in the case of demai because of its questionable status, like we said. Arivin, and you can do make an eruv also because of there's a rabbinical problem here and not a biblical one, because a common space between the courtyards is not actually it's not a reshut rabim, it's not a main thoroughfare with many people, so it's of a lesser status in terms of carrying in that place. So you can set up the thing beforehand, the eruv that would then permit that, because you're already dealing with a lesser, more lenient situation. V'tomnin et hachamin, and here's a thing that wasn't mentioned before, but maybe is being kind of drawing a parallel with this, and perhaps the Nerod or something else, but this has to do with insulating hot food, which in the case of if something were to be on Shabbat, already well into Shabbat, we would have the concern that maybe someone will insulate with something that heats and will be using something that will be kindling something. But when we're dealing with Ben Hashmashot, this time, like I said, between day and night, we're just getting to the beginning of entering Shabbat, there's less a concern because the food would likely already be hot. You're not going to insulate with something that will add heat and therefore feel the need to kindle. So you're just going to insulate with something else that's not going to add heat or need you to do anything, a violation, in order to prepare the thing that insulates, and therefore you are allowed to do this insulating during Ben Hashmashot of the food in order to keep the heat that's already in the food. Okay, so that's the end of this chapter, so we'll stop here and we'll continue with chapter 3 next week. Okay, bye.